We used a survey and individual interviews to investigate the learning strategies of twice exceptional students aged 10 to 23. What we'd found from the research previously is that people fail to talk to the participants themselves about this. So this study was really asking the kids what they thought would help them and what their experiences had been in school. We were most struck by the fact in our findings that all of the participants except one strongly believed that they were not learning to their potential in schools. As one participant put it, the lack of being able to choose in which direction I want to go has sort of confined my learning endeavors to my own time. And that was quite discouraging for most of the students in the study, although they, to their credit, they did their best to cope and to comply with what the teachers said. They used various ways of employing their strengths to circumvent their weaknesses, and most of those were self-discovered ways of circumventing their weaknesses because no one had really talked to them about using their strengths to help them out in their areas where they struggled. Most of them did use some compensatory strategies, such as using computers or going to separate spaces for tests, but accommodations geared to their specific exceptionalities were either sporadically or reluctantly used by teachers. Sometimes also the participants themselves didn't avail themselves of opportunities for accommodations because they didn't want to draw attention to themselves, or they wanted to go through school being a normal student and doing the same thing as everything the same way as other students did. And that's almost a direct quote from one of the participants. The one strategy that all of the participants noted as most helpful for them was to have choice and flexibility in how they approach their learning. Within guidelines, of course, they realize that teachers have curricular guidelines that they have to follow, but if they could have options for a different learning style or options for assessment and options for what pace they worked at, that was really very helpful to them. Regarding group work, participants' views were somewhat mixed, and one of my participants said, "It has the potential to be amazing and the potential to be the worst experience ever." And she said that it all depends on who is in the group and what you're being asked to do and how you're being asked to do it. So the recommendation the kids gave me was to make sure that you plan carefully for group composition, division of labor, and attention to their coexisting exceptionalities. There were several recommendations for teachers that came out of this study. First, participants' learning was unlikely to be optimized using either strategies intended for the gifted or those for learners with other exceptionalities. Rather, these participants required teacher planning that considered both perspectives simultaneously. Second, if the accommodations and compensatory strategies are to be used to best effect, they should be normalized in the classroom so that most students' needs are met. In other words, almost everybody should have some sort of accommodations going on at some point. And if that's the way things are going, then it's not such a big deal to have an accommodation that you really need. And finally, most importantly, allowing students to have more control over their own learning while addressing the curricular standards is a powerful way to support both their achievement and their motivation. I'd just like to conclude by stating kind of the obvious, but in the words of one of my participants, don't just assume that everyone learns in the same way.